Good evening, folks. Very, very warm, festive welcome to everybody joining tonight's Taster Pack session called Drinking First Class. Please excuse the out of breathness. I just had to run downstairs and fetch the white wines from the fridge. I hope you've all fetched your white wines from the fridge. Haven't had to scale quite so many sets of stairs as I have, but I'm banished up to the attic of our house while my family's downstairs. Anyway, very, very warm welcome to tonight. We've got 6 delicious wines in our handy taster packs for your delight. So as you all know, Naked's all about the community. So this is very informal tasting. You have the chat function. I think you're all pros now, but you have the chat function down the bottom of Zoom, and please do use the chat to say hi to each other, let us know where you're tuning in from, and feel free to share all of your ideas, tips as we go along through the tasting. It's great to see noisy chat amongst you all, getting the most out of this taster session. As we go through the wines and we talk to some of our special guests, our winemakers tonight, you can leave specific questions for those winemakers and the wines in the Q&A section, and we'll try and answer those. We'll answer them as we go along with each of the wines, I think, and maybe if there's a few general questions at the end and we've still got time, we'll do a few at the end. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Matt, I'm Naked's wine guy. I'll be tasting with you along 6 delicious wines. We've got 3 of our winemakers with us tonight who've made 3 of the wines, and there's a few wines in there that I'll talk through. So that's really the format. So first up, so the 3 winemakers we've got Kieran Atkinson, who you can see on my screen here. Hi, Kieran. He's closest to home from the UK. Then we've got the legendary Sam Plunkett, all the way from Australia, if his internet connection handles it, which I'm sure it will. And then a little bit later, right at the end, we've got Oscar Quevedo. Quevedo family wines from the Douro in Portugal. So something for everyone, hopefully, tonight. A really delicious set of wines. We've called this Drink First Class. This is all about pushing the boat out a little bit. It is Christmas after all, and what you can get for a few when you nudge the price points up a little bit and treat yourselves at Christmas. And we've got quite an eclectic mix of wines to show you tonight. So anyway, I'm sure I've rabbited on for long enough. You're all really thirsty. You have your wine glasses at the ready, your tasting packs at the ready. So welcome, Kieran Atkinson. Lovely to have you along with us tonight. One of our newer winemakers. So great that you could be here today. And Kieran, tell us about, it'd be lovely to know how you kind of got into wine. I'm fascinated by people's kind of journey into the wine world.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Kieran. I entered the wine world in kind of a slightly strange route. So my previous life, I was an army officer in a regiment called the Light Dragoons, a reconnaissance regiment. And I was very fortunate to be in that regiment. It's a fantastic regiment. And during that time, we went to and toured Iraq and Afghanistan, and it was during my last Iraq tour, which was 2007. I kind of had a light bulb moment. Don't really know why, but the Upper Gereshk Valley in Helmand province would motivate you to become a winemaker. But really decided that I wanted to have a change of career, and I wanted to make something. And I don't know if it was some sort of like idea of having a plot of land, growing your own grapes and making wine. But from there, actually went back to UK, became a tactics instructor for a couple of years at Warminster, and then I enrolled at Plumpton College. So Plumpton College, if you haven't heard of it, it's the only place you can learn winemaking in English in Europe. And so I went and studied there for a couple of years, Whilst there, I took on my own vineyard at Renishaw Hall, which is North Derbyshire. I became a contract winemaker, so I made about 1 million bottles of English wine over a 3-4 year period. At the same time, I was working for the Rothschilds, really kind of more of a sales role there with the Rothschilds, but really enjoying, basically trying to get engrossed every single aspect of the wine industry. And then at the same time, in the same year, I started the English Wine Project. And English Wine Project was a consultancy business while still making my own wine. And that was it. And so I was then advising lots and lots of vineyards, which you've all heard of, some very big name vineyards in the UK, how to make better wine, maybe how to plant vineyards, and basically just help them on their own journeys and to make a better product. Now then, from there, I had the opportunity to start my own winery, which I did. And so hence why, for anyone reading the notes, it normally says it, but my winery is in Derbyshire. And so the idea of the Mills and Hills wine is that it's a best of. So it is the best of English, what I think we can make. So I was very lucky in my consultancy role that I got to know where the best vineyards were in Sussex, Kent, Essex, Oxfordshire, Worcestershire, even Yorkshire.
Wow.
So all over, yes, yeah. So, and actually this year we're making a white sparkling wine, a Blanc de Noir from Yorkshire, and it's phenomenal. Incredible. It's amazing. Yeah. And so that allowed me to basically source the best fruit. And so the first of the 2 wines in which Naked picked up were the Mills and Hills Bacchus 22 and the Mills and Hills Pinot Noir 22. So Mills and Hills Bacchus 22.
Wow. So yeah, I was going to say, being a consultant, you get to scour the country presumably, and you can really see where some of the best plots are. How many different regions would you say have gone into this Bacchus 2022, or how many parts of the country?
Yeah, no, great question. So this is predominantly a Kent-based Bacchus. So there are other batches. There's some fruit in there from Essex. There's some fruit in there from Wiltshire, for Bacchus. Small batch, high, and so it's not just a question of trying to find the highest sugar, the lowest acid. That's not kind of how it is. It's actually about phenolic ripeness. And so what I mean by that is, are the pips brown? Are the stalks getting brown? And is everything happening at the same time? So we're getting sugar, we're getting acid dropping, sugar rising, plus ripeness, and that's the sweet spot. But this is a predominantly Kent-based, and with that, and a little bit Essex. And so the 23s, if we're talking 23, obviously we're not quite yet, but that's a little bit more 50-50 Essex and Kent. So, and that was because of the weather. And so 2022 in England was arguably the best. Maybe 2018 was slightly better, but 2022 was arguably England's best ever vintage. Maybe 2018, depending on who you listen to.
Yeah, yeah. I hear that. You know, one hears that often about certain vintages, but I can remember the conditions. I'm sure a lot of our customers on the call can sort of remember the 22 summer. Really, it was delightful. It was long. I mean, what were the conditions like in 22 to make it such a great vintage?
So the main one was we had that 2-3 week period right in the middle of summer where we were hitting 25 to 35 degrees C. Now 35 is actually too hot, really, but we're hitting kind of 25 to 30 on a regular basis, which really gave us huge ripeness. And not only that, it also meant the fruit was really, really clean. So again, going back to all the parameters you want, obviously high sugars, balanced acid, but you want clean fruit. So it comes in and it looks like the perfect fruit you buy in a supermarket. It's kind of, I want to eat this. Yeah. And so that very kind of basic idea of you only make wine with what you'd eat or you'd like to eat, that's exactly what happened in 22. So just perfect, warm, dry conditions, meant perfect flowers as well, ideal ripening, which led to this wine.
And let's get back to the wine a little bit. For anyone who doesn't know, tell us about Bacchus a little bit. It's only really become known in England as part of it. England and Bacchus. I guess it's kind of becoming our kind of national grape variety in a way, isn't it? But for any kind of listeners that don't know anything about Bacchus, or maybe this is their first experience of it, if we could just talk a little bit about the characteristics and what excites you about this.
Yeah, so Bacchus firstly is in a real sweet spot. And what I mean by that is, not only is it delivering gooseberry, fresh fruit, peach, stone fruit, and all those gorgeous things, it's also hitting the point in time where we are kind of fully behind Sauvignon Blanc. So this is kind of England's answer to Sauvignon Blanc. The but, which I think is something I'm trying to extol as something, as opposed to something I'm trying to remove, it isn't Sauvignon Blanc. And its parentage actually is a little bit more Germanic. And so really, and that's where you get the crispness. That's where I'm kind of after a little bit more of that apple, a little bit more of that citrus, as opposed to kind of gooseberry, stone fruit, tropical fruit, which obviously is a style of Sauvignon. But Bacchus done well has lots of freshness, lots of fruit, minus maybe lots of kind of elderflower. So we don't want loads of elderflower, but we want just more fruit. And obviously a lot of that's in the winemaking. So in regards to winemaking, some clever things, some interesting things, which hopefully you're getting. Now you'd have to obviously taste them with lots of different Bacchuses to get it. But we've used wild yeast in different parts of this. I should say inoculated wild yeast. So wild yeast designed to give you a bit more body, and so there's a bit more mouthfeel, and you get a bit of viscosity, a bit like oiliness. And that kind of brings out almost like the Germanic character, those kind of terpene notes, those sort of characteristics. And at the same time, the back end, we are trying to give you gooseberry, we are trying to give you stone fruit, we are trying to give you peach, and we want something to be soft, easy drinking, and delicious. So hopefully...
Well, it definitely is that. I mean, my experience of this, when I first tasted this Bacchus, and I tasted quite a few, but... when I first tasted this, what I thought you got in the wine that I don't often see in Bacchus is a bit more texture and mouthfeel. Like Bacchus can be bright and refreshing and zingy, but doesn't often have like much weight in the palate, if you know what I mean. And I don't know how have you kind of achieved that sort of slight extra depth and roundness to the wine, I guess.
Yeah, so where we get the fruit from, we treat every batch as an individual batch. So if we're getting fruit from Kent, we're getting fruit from Essex, we're getting fruit from Wiltshire, as an example. Now we would separate those batches, and also we'd separate the press fraction, so how hard we're pressing the fruit, and then we would marry those up. And then at the same time, some lees, so we use, so when you have your first pressed juice, that juice goes into a tank, then you rack off the gross lees. Then you ferment the wines, and then following that period of time, if you rack off straight away, you tend to encourage more fruit flavors. But if you don't rack off straight away, you tend to encourage more body. And so I've tried to encourage a balance of body and fruit. And that is a challenge, and you can only really do that with experience, or you just get lucky. So after kind of which obviously sometimes you do just get lucky and go, oh, that worked, great.
Thank God.
Which actually, you do need to probably get lucky quite often. But at the same time, it is that idea of you just take, it's constant tasting. It's constant and understanding lees and understanding character.
And just for anyone on the call who doesn't know what lees are, so it's the dead yeast cells after they've done their work fermenting, basically, and you include those in the wine, and they're a preservative, and they do lots of other things. They add weight, body, they preserve the wine, all sorts of clever things, right? Yeah.
So as an example, with this, we racked off some of the juice, some of the wine quite early, and then we left some on for an extended period, and then you taste them and you blend. And this is a Naked Wines blend. This has been selected with the consumer, you guys, in mind. So, and then I guess the question is, what do you expect from the Naked Wines consumer? I don't know. But the idea was obviously someone who's thinking about their wine, hence why you wouldn't be part of this, but someone who wants something approachable, something that has not just a story, but there's a way of making it. And we've kind of put this together to deliver something I hope that you're enjoying in your kitchen, sitting rooms, lounges, dining rooms, whatever it might be, bedrooms, And also, I think Bacchus works so well for not only spring, summer, and outside eating, but also Christmas and smoked salmons and canapes and those
I was going to
sort of
ask.
events. So it's really flexible.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that, and I'm seeing lots of great love for this wine in the chat. Lots of people getting the kind of passion fruit flavors, but really appreciating the sort of just as an amazing alternative discovery to Sauvignon Blanc, has an additional dimension, and lots of great recommendations for food matching. I mean, this Christmas, what will you be eating with your glass of Bacchus? I mean, what are the top choices in the Atkinson household?
Well, I think it's more of a starter, or it's more of a builder, blocking builder. So, for instance, this will be a smoked salmon event occasion. For sure. Also, I think it goes really well with that kind of maybe like not so much turkey, because you've got all the extras. So I think we're talking more kind of Pinot Noir and things like that, or kind of Chardonnay, which might lead us into the next one, very about stealing the thunder of the next wine. But it's that kind of light. It's those fish. It's grilled chickens. It's roasted vegetables. But it's keeping it fresh. I think the wine is the star, if you like, and it just complements what it is, which is a well-balanced, delicious, soft, fruity alternative, and an interesting alternative to NZ Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, too right. Oh, absolutely delicious. Awesome. And you're busy making the 2023 for us at the moment, which we'll release some point next year. How's that shaping up? Are you excited by that? It's a difficult vintage to follow after 22, and it's a big vintage, right?
So 23 will be the biggest vintage ever in England, which comes with its own, issues. Can you always make great wine with more fruit? And again, I mean, this year we found some slightly different parcels of fruit. We've got a main parcel in Kent, which we're using, but we've just got a little bit more in the Crouch Valley, which if you've never, for you guys out there, right now in England, where would you say like the grand vineyards are? They're pretty much coming from the A20, M20, if that's the right one, M2, Kent. Then you're talking Crouch Valley, Essex, and those two spots, if anyone's got any spare £100,000, £1 million or something, then go and buy some land there, because we look at land prices where it gets PDO, PGIs, i.e. protected areas for winemaking. Those two places will be where it's at. So anyway, back to the wine 23s. We are currently racking we're racking the wine off the lees now. Again, not all of it, we're keeping some. And so far, the lees, what's been amazing, the lees have been so clean, so fresh. And actually, so I guess the question then is why? I basically bought a bigger press this year. So we've got a bigger press, which means we can press more fruit, which means we can separate that fruit. It means we can separate the press fractions. Anyway, back to slightly more complicated winemaking stuff. But 23 shaping up really well.
I love Dominic's comment, M2, M20, evocative of fine terroir, he says. So, brilliant.
Well, it's a bit like old Chateau Doncaster. So it's, and lots of and actually that's really the idea of Mills and Hills. So the idea of Mills and Hills is what England means, I guess, to me. And it is the idea of what is England, slightly Blakeism stuff going on. But it's the idea of England is a collection of industry meets beautiful countryside, and where we make the wine currently is in a UNESCO World Heritage Site, an old mill. It's a great wine. I hope you think, and we've got a lot to be very proud in this country. And English wine's only going in one direction.
Absolutely. It's still in relative infancy in a sort of modern version of English wine. Now we've sort of moving away from some of the older Germanic varieties, the big yielders, those sorts of things. So it's like super exciting. You talked about your winery. One of the question from Steph: can we visit your vineyard or your winery in Derbyshire? Do you have a cellar door? Would you welcome them?
Yeah, we do. So through my website, English Wine Project, we do winery tours. all year round. We do vineyard tours at Renishaw Hall, summer only because there's not much to see in winter. And we do loads of events. And actually, I need to talk to you guys. 'Cause I'd like to do it. It'd be really nice to do a naked wines only event next year and get just angels involved. Because I think what's been so nice about being part of this and the touring is that it does feel like is a great community to be part of. So I'd like to kind of encourage that and get you guys along to the winery. But check us out. English Wine Project.
That sounds fantastic. We should definitely talk more about that. I need to move on to the next one in a minute, but for anyone who doesn't know as well, Kieran's made us an absolutely delicious Pinot Noir that is live on the site as well. If you haven't tried that, go and check that out. I mean, genuinely, on any country in the world, it's a genuinely wonderful Pinot Noir, and I only say that because historically it was challenging to make red wines from noble varieties like Pinot Noir in the UK, and I think done an amazing job of getting enough colour out of it and body and depth, and absolutely delicious as well. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, stick around. I know you've got the taster pack, but it's been great chatting to you. One quick last question: are your wines gluten-free?
Yes, they are gluten-free and they are vegan friendly. So we don't use any animal products whatsoever in any of our production.
That's wonderful. Great. Wonderful. Thanks, Kieran. That's brilliant.
Thanks,
right,
Matt.
folks, we will move on and we'll move into France now. So all of these wines we've chosen tonight really are great options for your festive dining, festive entertaining, but all year round, really. So the next one we've got is Mischief and Mayhem's Bourgogne Blanc 2021. And if you're in the Fine Wine Club, you may have already had this wine. I think we put it in the March case earlier this year. And what I thought would be great, because watching that back got me thinking. At the time we released it through the Fine Wine Club, there was a bit of talk about how it might develop and age, and I thought it'd be a brilliant opportunity to come back to this wine over 6 months later, just in time for Christmas, if you wanted to refresh your memories and have a taste. And if you haven't tasted it before, it's a simply delicious wine. So we're in Burgundy here. Mischief and Mayhem, Michael and Fiona Ragg, husband and wife team, Brits, used to work at my old company, Berry Brothers and Rudd, although our paths didn't cross there, but a lovely couple. And they did what is extremely challenging to do for British people, and that is move to Burgundy and actually buy vineyards there. Because it is not easy. And we started working with them a couple of 18 months ago, two years ago, with their Saint-Aubin Premier Cru and Savigny Les Beaunes Premier Cru. So two pretty exotically priced wines, but we are in Burgundy here. But that gave us the confidence to commission wine for the Fine Wine Club, Bourgogne Blanc, and that is wine number 2. So Chardonnay, 100% Chardonnay, and the Rags go for quite a clean, mineral, refreshing Chardonnay style, particularly with this Bourgogne Blanc. Burgundy is quite a long region in the sort of central, slightly eastern part of France, continental climate, very cold in the winter, pretty warm actually in the summer, but generally I kind of guess a cool climate region. The birthplace of the great Chardonnays of the world that have made Chardonnay so popular across the rest of the world. People trying to sort of emulate that style, that fame. They saw really, I guess, you can make wines from just tiny patches of land and single vineyards in Burgundy, and a lot of that happens, and the volumes are really tiny. But I think what any winemaker in Burgundy will tell you is the most challenging is actually producing their standard Bourgogne Blanc, because they have to blend from different regions, and it really is the art of constructing a wine from different parcels and different plots of land across Burgundy. And I think this is what the Rags have done phenomenally well here. So 60% of this fruit comes from the south of Burgundy in the Macon region. That's the kind of warmest, most expressive part of Burgundy. That's where you're going to get, I can see lots of talk of apricots. There's kind of stone fruit characters on the nose, and then they've got a little bit of wine from Saint-Aubin, which they have a good parcel of land there, and then the rest of it comes from two iconic parts of the Côte de Beaune. So Meursault and Puligny-Montrachet. These are names that you may or may not have heard of, but these are really the sort of iconic parts of Burgundy for white wine in particular. So a small part in there. The wine is fairly simply made. It's all made in stainless steel, and they use very little oak. So for this wine, it's all about freshness. It's all about just having a pure honeysuckle stone fruit character. Very elegant wine. So I just think this wine was a really interesting wine to, now it's evolved a little bit, it's relaxed a little bit. And if you are looking for a classic pairing and you want to drink white wine with your Christmas turkey, or lighter, maybe a sort of a tart, a goat's cheese tart or something like that, I think this would be a fantastic wine to drink with it. So lots of complexity, minerality to it, sort of stone fruit and kind of flinty character to the wine. So there we go. I see lots of really, really good comments. Very impressed with this wine. It's delicate and subtle. People kind of get the honeysuckle and the now let's see, it would be nice with paneer curry, so some sort of cheesy curry. Yeah, pretty good. But it's a really versatile wine, just so drinkable. I'm a Chablis fan. This is yum. Yeah, absolutely. I think if you think you don't like Chardonnay, and what you're probably detecting is kind of like the big buttery oaky styles of Chardonnay, but you love the sort of steely preciseness of Chablis. This is a great bridge wine where you've got those sorts of Chablis characters, but just a little bit more generous, a little bit richer. So lots of people saying this would go well with cheese. I think actually white wine is a lot of the time is a better bet for your cheese course at the end of dining, and this would handle sort of particularly lighter cheeses really, really well. Great stuff. Okay, let's march on, because we've got two other winemakers after still to talk to. So we're going to move on to red wines now, and we're heading off to Italy for wine number 3. I'm a self-confessed Italophile, love Italian wines. It's an incredibly interesting country for wine production. I think it's the only country where every single part of the country makes wine. It is absolutely ingrained in culture there. And so this is Tornesi, so Maurizio Tornesi with his daughter, father-daughter team, the Tornesi family in Tuscany. And if you haven't been, so this is their Rosso di Montalcino. So Montalcino is a village in the sort of central southern part of Tuscany on the west of Italy. And this is one of the iconic regions of Italy, if you like, making some of the finest red, particularly red wines in Italy. So as I say, father-daughter team, very small estate, 5 hectares. Not sure what that is in acres, but it's a small vineyard, small property. And it's just on the outskirts of Montalcino. Montalcino is this beautiful hilltop town, of which there are a number around the region. But that was really the kind of epicenter of this part of Tuscany. So most famous for the wine called Brunello di Montalcino, and this is Rosso di Montalcino. So generally producers make a Brunello and a Rosso. And particularly with this estate, there is very little distinction between the two. The Rosso is like a baby Brunello, so it's just a bit younger. And actually, I prefer the balance of those younger wines. So the grape variety here is Sangiovese. It's 100% Sangiovese. You may or may not have heard of that variety. Grown predominantly in Italy. They grow a reasonable amount in Oz as well, as Sam could probably tell you later. So a little bit there as well, but mainly famous in Tuscany. Sangiovese is also in Chianti, if you like Chianti, but there it tends to be blended with some other varieties. But this is absolutely pure Sangiovese. You'll notice in the glass it's not that rich in colour. Sangiovese isn't. Their winemaking style is very kind of hands-off. So all of the colour in the grape comes from the skins, and they handle the grapes very, very delicately. So just submerge the skins under the wine for actually a long period of time, but very little maceration, very little stirring around. So you get this very gentle extraction and a lovely colour. They have vineyards at two different altitudes. So actually Tuscany goes up quite high to about 500, 600 meters above sea level. So they have a vineyard right at the top and then a vineyard sort of lower down. The lower down is obviously hotter, warmer, and provides the structure to the wine, the depth and the structure. And then the high up vineyard that's a bit cooler, really that's where you're getting the fragrance, particularly the aromas, the aromatics, and it's coming from that high up vineyard. In terms of oak aging, they only age this in very, very large Botti Grandi. They're called big barrels. Slavonian oak. It's very old, so it's not imparting any oak characteristics to the wine. It's just allowing a small amount of air to mix with the wine in these large barrels, and that's for just 6 months. So quite young on the Rosso di Montalcino. This is 2020, so it's also spent a bit of time in bottle. And what I love about Rosso di Montalcino, all these Sangiovese styled wines, is the smell they give you. This sort of like kirsch cherry, but like almost balsamic cherry, maybe some dried herbs, just very sort of lifted and floral, not heavy. They've always got great freshness, lovely freshness, and some tannins, definitely some chalky, sort of sandy tannins. The soil is quite sandy. Tuscany used to be a beach back millions of years ago, and you'll often find some shells, particularly in the vineyard. And all of that's just giving the wine this lovely structure. So Brunello is the bigger brother or sister of this wine, and would have more structure and built for more robust food, deep, dark sort of hunter's stew or baked aubergines. But this works really well with anything. It's versatile, it's fresh and fragrant, but it will go great with mushroom Wellington, mushroom pasta, a ragu, something like that. I see, some good suggestions of salami and cheese will work with this, where you've got the acidity to match that. Meaty pasta dishes, bit of chorizo, mushrooms for sure. Yeah, I mean, mushrooms are very popular in Tuscany. I think with wine, you always think about where the wine comes from and what those culinary traditions are. And 9 times out of 10, that wine goes with those sorts of things, because the two go hand in hand. People make wine for food and make food for wine. and that's what it's all about. Truffles, lamb, absolutely. All great suggestions in the chat. Steph's asking, what is a tannin taste, please? Could you describe? Good shout. Sorry, sometimes get ahead of myself talking about things. Tannins are the sort of perceived dryness in the mouth. It sometimes, if the tannins were to be really, really strong, you might sort of feel like your teeth had gone dry or your lips were sticking to your gums or something like that. So it's quite hard to explain, but it's this sort of slightly drying finish taste at the end of the wine, which doesn't sound particularly appealing when I describe it like that, but actually it is. I think wine without tannins you can get very sick of very, very quickly. Sorry about my I've got this new feature on the computer that makes emojis when I put my thumb up, but anyway, so it's that feeling, but what that does is kind of make you want to go back for another taste, another glass, and it also the tannins are very important when you match the wine with the food, and without those tannins it becomes quite sickly quite quickly and doesn't handle food very well. So but with tannins it's all about the balance, and it's all about the quality of the tannins, and just getting that sweet spot right where they're there and they help but they don't overpower anything. So there we go. Thank you. I'll do that. Somebody giving me a tip how to disable the annoying animations on my Mac, which have just suddenly appeared and rather embarrassing. I'll do that, or I'll try not to use my hands too much for now, and then I'll do it later. Anyway, so hopefully, hopefully you like all that wine. Sorry, I was a bit preoccupied there. So hopefully you like the Sangiovese. We will go on to wine number 4, and we are heading back to France now for this wine, and it's our good old friend Dennis Crespo, down in the Rhone Valley, the king of Kieran. Hopefully, if you've been on tour last summer, I think it was, you had a chance to meet Dennis. He's a fantastic guy, amazing winemaker. It's a wonderful, wonderful success story between Naked and Dennis and the cooperative that he works, the Cave de Kieran, who really were not in a good place when Dennis joined the co-op. They're a bit down on their luck, and the wines weren't fantastic, and Dennis came in, absolutely revolutionized the wines, and Naked met Dennis at the time and were able to fund a lot of the wines and help with the turnaround of the Cave de Kieran. And yeah, it's just a fantastic partnership, and they're extremely grateful to you, Angels, for all of your funding and support over the years, and his wines are doing fantastically well. So this wine, Rasteau, which is in the south of the Rhone. So basically in the Rhone, you have the north and the south. The north is all about Shiraz in red varieties. As a red variety. And the south is generally all about Grenache, but it's all about blends in the south. And this is a blend. It's 50% Grenache, 20% Shiraz, and 30% Mourvèdre. And Rasteau is not so well known, I don't think. It's actually a famous part of the Rhone for sweet, so fortified red wines, Vin du Naturel they're called. And Rasteau, up until 2009 vintage, was you could only put Rasteau on the label if it was a sweet fortified wine. But it was recognized as a great area for red wine, and if you made dry wine, you would have to call it Côte de Rhone Village or something like that. But it was recognized as a real notch up than your basic Côte de Rhone, and it should be allowed to make dry wine there from starting in the 2009 vintage. And this is fully dry. I mean, there's some natural fruit sweetness. It's very hot down there. It's very sunny, and the soil I won't go too technical, but its neighbouring Châteauneuf-du-Pape is particularly famous for its soil. They have these big rocks in soil that radiate heat back up into the grapes. Just there's no problem with ripening there, and you need these really hardy, heat-resistant varieties to grow, of which these are, particularly Mourvèdre and Grenache. So the soil is quite similar. It's lovely, sort of chalky, stony soil. And this one from Dennis is 100% organic. He's a real passionate believer in organics and using as low sulfites as possible. And you have to be a very good winemaker to manage keeping the sulfur down. Sulfur is the preservative that a lot of wines have in to protect the wine. But he's very passionate about organics, and he's gradually moving the whole of the production over to organics. This is certified organic. The wine is fermented all in concrete. So concrete, all of the cooperatives across France and Italy in the 50s and 60s, they were all made out of concrete, big concrete tanks. And then they sort of fell into ruin as people discovered stainless steel and oak and things like that. But now they've actually made a real resurgence, and people very much interested in concrete as a way to ferment wine. And it just gives a sort of, some people feel it gives a wine a bit of extra texture and crunch and lots of sort of nice mouthfeel kind of characters. So yeah, this wine, pure cherries. I think it's quite spirity almost. You definitely sort of feel the alcohol. This is from a hot place. It's not a small wine. It's not a light wine. I think the natural sweetness goes amazingly with cheese. If you don't want to, well, we'll come on to port in a minute. We're very passionate about port, and we'll be talking to Oscar about port. But if you don't want to drink port with your cheese course at the end, this would be a fantastic option. Lovely, bright, vibrant color, dark cherry fruit. A lot of people saying, yeah, bit of oak and tobacco. I think it's quite pure, actually. It's really juicy, black cherry, phenomenal. Yeah. So there we go. That's the Rasto. I think that wine would be a great match personally for duck, maybe goose if you're having so game birds, mushrooms again, sort of heavy roasted vegetables. Yeah. So Alex says this one screams Christmas. I think it does. Go well with mince pies. Absolutely. Yeah. This one with the sort of bit of natural sweetness in it can really go with blue cheese, strong cheeses, those kinds of things. Lovely. Okay. That's the Rasto. Marvelous. Well, if there are no questions, I don't think there are any questions about the Rasto. I think it's time to welcome, if he's there, I can see his name, so that's promising, our very own legend of Australia, Mr. Sam Plunkett. Sam, how are you doing? Oh, can't hear you. Yeah, we were having a bit of trouble with Sam's sound. It's taking a long time to beam over the internet from the depths of Victoria. Still no joy, Sam. My lip reading's terrible as well. In the meantime, while you're trying to get your sound working, try now. Unmute. Well, ladies and gents, while Sam's sorting out his sound, let's pour his wine. So this wine here, headphones are our friends sometime. Yeah. absolutely. Try some headphones, Sam. Let's pour his wine anyway, ladies and gents, while he's trying to log on again. So this is Sam Plunkett's Yarradindi Vineyard Shiraz 2020. So a nice bit of bottle age on this wine. So here we go. Is Sam there? I would really like Sam to be able to talk about this wine, if possible, as the absolute king of Shiraz. I think this is actually an incredible wine to taste after the Rasto, because it's quite an interesting contrast. So Stan can talk us through where it comes from in a bit, but let's talk about what we can smell and taste in the glass together, guys. So it's like really expressive in the glass, punchy, aromatic. Somebody says iodine. That's a really interesting flavor note there. I haven't smelled iodine for a while, but I really like that word in tasting notes, and I actually use it sometimes as well. Just to give it that sort of like almost coal dust kind of character, a bit medicinal. Yeah, I think often with Aussie wines, and you often get that menthol eucalyptus character. And I've no idea. I mean, there are plenty of eucalyptus trees around, and maybe they impart some of their characters into the grapes. But often it can be overbearing in some Aussie wines. And what I get from this is just that perfect balance where you just got a touch of eucalypt to there, a little bit medicinal, and lovely expressive punchiness. So the Yarradindi, so this is so Sam is based in Victoria. And it's, I think, particularly for us Brits and maybe if you're relatively new to wine, or maybe if you're not and don't drink a lot of Aussie wine, it's very we can be very quick to lump all Australian wine together. But the thing about Australia is you have to remember is it's basically like the size of Europe, right? And they make wine all across the south coast, basically, and right up to the west. So the variety of styles on offer in Australia is enormous. And so there is no one Aussie red style, if you like, but there are some characters that you often detect in Aussie wine, and sometimes that's that eucalyptus character, and sometimes that Shiraz, that sort of spiciness. Are you there, Sam? No sound. We can see you, Sam. Maybe we all need to learn lip reading or sign language very, very quickly, and we can try that now. No. Yes.
How's that?
Oh, we made it. You should hear the things I've been saying about your wine in the meantime.
I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry, Matt. That is
No.
a mystery to me.
Not at all, Sam. Not at all. It's great to have you here. It really is. Welcome. So, first of all, what time is it? You having your cornflakes right about now, are you?
Yeah, it's breakfast time, so 10 to 8.
10 to 8. So yeah, okay. Lashings of Shiraz for breakfast for Sam, but he's a winemaker after all.
Do you know, we would often kick off tastings about 9 a.m. But yeah, in truth, 7 a.m, 8 a.m, that is a bit early for me.
Yeah. It's true. I don't know about you, but I think my palate, my taste, when I need to do some serious tasting, it's always early in the morning. It's when you're sort of lively and keen and ready to go, and always on for some reason I find on an empty stomach, it's like when you're at your sharpest and keenest.
Yeah. No, before smoko, before morning coffee. That's
peak
tasting for us.
Yeah. So Sam, for anyone who hasn't met you on tour or doesn't know your story, like where are you in Oz, and kind of like what's your setup, and yeah,
Yeah.
tell us where you are.
So we are in the bottom, the southeastern corner of Australia. So we're in the vineyard in the Strathbogies, which is and the big city near us is Melbourne. So we're about 100 kilometres north of Melbourne. And thank you so much, Angels and Naked Wines. Over the last decade, we started out leasing or borrowing a corner of a neighbour's winery, and then we were able to lease that winery, and then 5 or 6 years ago able to buy an old, of all things, a textile mill, a weave house in the town of Seymour, and turn that into a winery. And these days, in a big year, we'll crush 1,000 tonnes, employ a dozen people, and actually, one of the things Naked Wines might not understand is that you've been really helpful to the town of Seymour. This site was a bit derelict, and support probably about 20 growers. So
right.
It's the ripple. You have a big impact, Naked Wines.
That's fantastic to hear. I'm sure that all our customers love to hear that. And what what's the climate like there, and kind of how does that affect how you make wine? And you know, I think often everyone thinks of Oz as just really scorchingly hot all the time, but presumably not always the case.
Yeah. So the further south you go, the cooler it gets. So, and our home vineyards are in the Strathbogies, and for every 100 metres up you go, temperature drops by 0.7 of a degree. So elevated Australia is cool, or way down south is cool. And actually, the Yarradindi Shiraz that we're looking at, 2020 vintage, actually a hot year, and I'm not sure people remember that was the year of the nasty bushfires in Australia, like literally millions of hectares up at some point. But anyway, a photo of the vineyard just about a week or so before harvest, and you'll see my feet are in green south in this Yarradindi vineyard. It's also cool because it's elevated. So there's great, really an enormous range of climates in Australia. And we play this probably won't mean much to people, but we'll get fruit from as far north as Glenrowan in my home state of Victoria, and that's Ned Kelly country, and actually it is warm. And in fact, in 2020, in that hot year, that was the one vineyard where we saw some measurable amount of influence from the bushfires, where the smoke, the particles of smoke, they'll sit on the leaves, and then the stomata open up, and these little particles go into the vine, and the vine says, hey, I don't like this stuff, I'm going to get rid of it, and it actually park it in a berry to try and get it into something that drops off.
Right.
So you have the 20 or so vineyards. That one we did see a little tickle of smoke in that hot bushfire year, but yeah, Yarradindi, well south of that.
Wow, that's fantastic. And you make quite a few, a number of different Shirazes for Naked Wines. I mean, where does the Yarradindi sit in relation to some of the other wines that you make? I mean, how do you sort of decide on where to make wine?
Yeah. So they are all quite different. So from the west of the state, we get Shiraz from a vineyard that's got no irrigation. So it's tiny crop and thick skins. And actually, Matt, I really liked the way you were describing tannin in wine, including to say that without tannin, wine can be a bit boring. So no, these thick-skinned vineyards, they'll give a lot of tannin, and they can be a bit grippy and drying. And actually, the person who was asking the question about how do you just, what is tannin, I often use this example of tea. If you drink really strong black tea, that drying sensation in your mouth, that's tannin. And kind of the interesting thing is that I'm a white tea drinker, so I can take my strong black tea, pour in some milk, and the protein, the casein in the milk, it attaches itself to the tannin and actually it feels softer. And in the winery, sometimes we will do a similar thing with a white wine that might have a bit of tannin or astringency. We'll actually drop a submersible pump in the tank, get it spinning over, pour in carton after carton of skinny milk, and the casein, the protein in the milk attaches itself to the tannin, all sinks to the bottom of the tank. Or with a grippy red, we use a different protein, and in this case, it's albumin from egg white. So we might maybe 1 or 2, sometimes 3 egg whites per barrel, mix that up in a bit of warm water with some salt and tip that into the barrel and mix it up. And again, it's the protein attaches itself to the tannin. But actually, that's a huge distraction from all these different vineyards. So Yarradindi, it's relatively to the south, so cool, relatively elevated, so cool. So it'll be a bit more perfumed and spicy and finer tannins. But keeping in mind that 2020 was a warm vintage, so it's also got a sense of richness and real, I think, some blackcurrant, almost chocolatey flavours.
Yeah, I think the balance is, there's a lot of love for this wine. It's the balance, it's like so aromatic, but then the palate is really rich and juicy and got the sort of black flutes. But I love the sort of the slightly floral characters on the nose are beautiful. Some people detecting a sort of slight medicinal character. When you were trying to sort out your sound, I was kind of talking a bit about that kind of eucalypt character in some Aussie wines, and you know, a little bit of it can be a really interesting character, but sometimes it can get over the top. But I think the sort of iodine note or medicinal note that some people are detecting is that kind of character, isn't it? And it adds some depth, just a nice point to the wine. I
reckon a couple of really interesting things you're commenting on there, including the kind of the overall sensation of it being perfumed or aromatic, and that's a feature of cool climate Shiraz. So with sunlight in the day, flavour compounds accumulate, and if it stays warm overnight, what happens is there's this kind of development of flavour during the day, and then to some extent it gets lost overnight, so it'll go up, down, up, down. But in these cool climates, flavour will accumulate, and then it gets cool at night, and it's like mother's refrigerator holds it, and then it accumulates next day, holds it. So you get this greater intensity of perfume and aromatic. So that's, this cool climate site, that's what's contributing to the perfume. And that menthol or eucalyptus, and then the menthol or eucalyptus piece, the compound's literally called eucalyptol, and the Blue Mountains around Sydney, they're called the Blue Mountains because there's a haze of, I think it's the volatilized oil from the eucalypt trees. Anyway, it's like this stuff is physically in the air. And the Australian Wine Research Institute, they've done work, and vines within about 70 metres of a eucalypt tree, this compound, again, it could pass into the berry from sitting on the berry, or that thing about going into the leaf and then into the berry. The Yarradindi vineyard, it's pretty big, and there's absolutely got actually state forest around it, but it's not the most. We get fruit from other vineyards that have much greater influence from trees and more of that menthol eucalypty thing. I think it's there as a background flavour. It's actually, in the case of the Yarradindi vineyard, I wonder how much of it is from that environmental influence from gum trees, and actually how much of it is just a feature of Shiraz from this place.
I think that's right. Anyway, it's a sort of subtle supportive character, and I think that balance is the thing that works well. What do you like to munch on when you're drinking a bottle of Yarradindi Shiraz at home? I mean, we're coming up to Christmas. What's Christmas? What do you do for Christmas? How's your Aussie Christmas? And like, what would you like to eat with this wine?
Yeah. Hey, so different to what I imagine an English Christmas to be. Like you guys will from time to time see a white Christmas. From us, it's shorts and sunburn, a barbecue, loads of kids. It's a catastrophe. There's what is it? My brother describes the annual airing of grievances. Like if someone doesn't blow up and speed off, then it's not Christmas. Heaps of food. Actually, we've generally got 2 or 3 barbecues going. All of this Shiraz spent time in oak, and when a cooper makes a barrel, they light a fire in it, and you get some smoky, spicy smells from the oak move into the wine. And I reckon you can imagine that a piece of beef on the char grill barbecue, you get some of those black smoky flavors. So really anything off the barbecue is a good match with this. And actually I've said meat, but it actually doesn't have to be meat. Could be a veggie thing. And again, off the barbie for the matching smoky flavors.
Yeah, I can imagine those. So like aubergines done on the barbie, like smoky aubergines or something like that would be pretty awesome with it. I mean, it's got the freshness as well. I mean, it's got the nice good acidity, isn't it? It's a refreshing wine. I think it's not soupy, syrupy. It's very light and on its feet, I think.
Yeah.
So versatile, quite versatile.
Yeah. And look, kind of apologies because I feel like I'm bouncing too much into the science or talking about the science of winemaking, but that freshness, it's this cool climate thing. From nature, we naturally get more acid, and we measure this stuff. And this wine's got about 7 grams per litre of measurable or titratable acid. And this won't mean anything, won't mean much to people, but a low pH of 3.5, and that gives this sense of brightness and freshness. This vineyard, it faces east, so it cops, which in Australia, in the Southern Hemisphere, that's the morning sun. So the dew burns off early in the morning. We've got less chance of mould. It's quite steep, so the site rises about 90 metres from the bottom of the block to the top. You get quite puffed walking up there. But this relatively steep hill means when the western sun, the setting sun, this vineyard falls into shadow kind of relatively early in the evening. And that's got this cool climate thing, so naturally higher acid, so naturally lower pH, and that's
less sun, the cooler, the less of the afternoon sun. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, it's really nice sense of the place and what makes the wine special. Loads of people loving that wine, and lots of people loving the science. Yeah, somebody says the more science we hear, the more they can claim that this is educational for them and like to justify it in that sense. So that's quite funny. Now let's see from some of the questions. Sam, this is stunning Shiraz, but I love Northern Rhone Syrah too. Why do these wines taste so different? Your Shiraz versus Northern Rhone? Is it simply the terroir, or are the grapes different?
Yeah. So do you know? First of all, I'll draw a parallel between the two. So the vineyard records show the clone of this Shiraz to be PT20. Anyway, to my knowledge, there is no clone called PT20. Yeah, but this thing called PT23, and it refers to pruning trial 23, which is I'll say a parent vineyard in Australia in Griffith, and it's got its roots back to the 1830s when a guy called James Busby, a Brit, he around and collected these vines. And the James Busby Shiraz, it comes from the Hermitage Hill in the Rhone. So, the genetic material for these vines actually rolls directly back to the Hermitage Hill. And actually, interesting, these vines are on their own roots because this particular region vineyard hasn't got phylloxera, which pinned lots of, actually pretty much all the vineyards in Europe, which would now be planted on rootstock. The climate, actually the soil's quite different, the climate's quite different. So the big difference in the taste is, actually I think while I'm describing this as a cool climate vineyard, hey, Australia's a warm sunny place, lots of sunshine hours. So the wines, they have often more alcohol. So this greater sense of, and alcohol can give a sweetness or a richness or weight.
And a mouthfeel and
and I reckon often, actually I love Northern Rhone reds, man oh man, actually so much wine I love, Chablis, Rhone reds. The tannin in actually typically the tannin in old world wines I think is often more grainy and drying, where New World and particularly Australian Shiraz, it's got this sense of a plushness or being supple. There's tannin there, there's a kind of a sandy sensation, just say a supple texture, and it's related to climate and also soil and a whole bunch of things.
No, that's cool. There's so many nuances that make a wine that it can only be from where it is. So many characters coming together. That's really cool. Thanks, Sam. Sorry that the signal's been a bit patchy, but we got there, and I'm really pleased we did because you've made so many great wines for Naked over the years, and it's such a long partnership that it's great to have you on this and to talk through the wine for sure.
Hey, and just before I go, can I introduce you to my wonderful son, Ed?
Hey, Naked Wines.
Oh, hello, Ed. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
He's a lot taller than you, Sam.
He's absolutely the new improved version in every way.
How old are you, Ed?
I'm 19.
Oh, nice one. Cool.
Yeah.
You're gonna take after your old man in the wine trade, or probably not?
No, I don't think I'll try to follow up that act.
He sledges me too much about it. He couldn't do it.
Get him working hard in the cellar. That's the thing.
Yeah. Actually, Ed's made heaps of wine, even as a little kid, making sticky wine and making pet nat, all kinds of things. It's really cool working with boys.
I bet. Oh, that's awesome. Nice one. Right, stick around if you'd like, Sam, or not. We've got one more wine to come, but it's been awesome talking to you. I wish we had longer. Maybe we'll do this again sometime, particularly you and Kieran. It's just been great talking. So thank you very much. Let's move on, guys. We've got the last wine of the night. So I did see a message in the chat to say that Oscar can no longer join. Oscar Quevedo from the Douro. That's a real shame. Never mind, Oscar. I hope everything's okay there. It was his daughter's birthday today, so we were very lucky that he said yes originally, and perhaps something's gone awry. But anyway, we're going to taste this delicious wine now. So it's Quevedo LBV Port. I think it's the first time we've put a port in one of these tasting packs. And, it is Christmas time, probably the most traditional time to drink port. What I wanted to ask Oscar, if he'd been here, is really, I've often wondered actually how the Portuguese enjoy port, because it's such a British thing in a way. There's an extremely old history between Britain and Portugal over port, but I think it was just a good chance to open and taste the port together. for a lot of people, they only try port once per year, or don't drink a lot of port, don't really understand what it is. Some port has a bad reputation because they'll open a bottle of port, drink a glass one Christmas, then shove it very sorrily back to the back of the drinks cupboard to collect dust, and open the same bottle for another glass the following Christmas. I've heard that. I'm sure my grandparents used to do that. And so that is obviously sacrilege, and port, just like anything, is just like any other wine, does go off. So open your port, drink it, have fun, enjoy it. I think it's one of the most dangerously Moorish styles of wine there are. So port is definitely not just for Christmas, it is for all year, absolutely. And Kieran, if you're still there, I'd love to know how you enjoy port. There are so many different styles. So this is LBV.
You might be in video, bro. Oh,
Kieran, you there?
hello.
Hey,
Am I online?
Yeah, you are.
Hello.
I just thought you're still around. It'd be great to get you on. You're tasting the port at Oscar's LBV. Do you drink a lot of port? Are you a port enthusiast?
I tell you, I love port, and I love it. I love it because, well, it's just a great drink, and I don't know if it's an age thing. I hope it's not, but it just gets better every year. I love the sweetness, obviously, that comes with it, but also the balance, and it's a fantastic aperitif. It's a fantastic drink to enjoy, and I also love the history of it, the cultural history of port. I think it's just really important as obviously this time of year, Christmas, but just to kind of share it with your family, all these not say youngsters, because obviously I've got young kids as well, but culturally, I just think it's a fantastic drink, and also it's quite a chunky 100 mils of port. We've been.
I know. Yeah, I know. I forgot to say at the start of this, each taster sample is 100 mils. So if you're on your own, please do drink along with us responsibly. Don't consume all 600 mils, which is effectively a bottle, and 100 of that's port, full on. So if anyone who doesn't know, port is a fortified wine. They fortified it with a fairly neutral brandy when it's sort of partially through fermentation. So there's some natural sweetness. That's why you're getting all those lovely Moorish sugary characters. They use a selection of varieties in port. Name them, but Touriga Nacional, Tinta Roriche, there are about 5 or 6 port varieties, aren't there? And they're all really robust. They actually make fantastic dry wine out of those wines. Oscar makes some dry wine. We have another winemaker in the Douro, João Pires, who makes dry wines out of those styles. But they're known for making robust, dark wines. And what you get with this style is the sweetness, but also the tannin. So it doesn't feel, when you finish a glass of it, or you finish a taste, it leaves you not feeling like it's sickly and you want to go back for more. And I think that's the art with port, isn't it? It's the kind of balance of those tannins and sugar.
I totally agree, and I think also what's interesting with port is, although it is more alcoholic, it's just under 20% alcohol. At the same time, it's not a spirit. It's not that next jump. So actually, it's just something that is great as an aperitif, but it is great. It's beautiful with cheese. So I've got a hunk of Manchego on the go. I took your advice, Matt. Yeah, and it sat in front of me, and it's just a wonderful, and Stilton especially. I think it's just such a cornerstone of every good cellar should have some port in.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It is the classic, isn't it? Port and cheese. If ever anyone wants to know basically what you should open with cheese, you can talk about a range of different styles of wine, but there is really no better combination, and it's the saltiness of the cheese going with the sweetness and the you need the alcohol to cope with the cheese as well, and the darkness of the wine. And you're absolutely right. Port and Stilton, it sounds like it is a bit of a cliche, but it's for a very good reason, that they just go so damn well together.
I was loving Sam's wine, and I was reading some of the comments, and I was kind of I was kept writing Christmas pudding. Although I appreciate in Australia it's all barbecues.
Yeah,
but
barbecue.
It just seems
pudding.
like that kind of that gateway Christmas pudding, post Christmas pudding is port, and it's just like how do you kind of make this perfect Christmas extravaganza? And actually, I think all the wines have been beautiful. I'm a big fan of all these wines. I'm an Angel as well, obviously winemaker, but Angel as well.
Yeah.
So I buy a lot of these wines. Just have done in the past, and Sam's into this is a great stepping stone all the way up. So
in the next shopping basket for you. Oh, cool. I'm glad you've enjoyed the lineup. If we decant port, how long will it last? Well, really, like I'd sort of say, it's a wine. It's fortified. It lasts a bit longer, but you're decanting it. Firstly, we should probably say there are lots of different styles of port, so we can quickly summarize those, and it would depend on the style of wine, port, and decanting it. So if we just run through some basics here, there are different styles, but they basically fall into two camps, right? It's fruity port and like what I would call nutty oxidized port. So you've got fruity ports like this, late bottle vintage, or ruby port. If you're talking about, like, the French drink a lot of port as an aperitif, and they generally drink kind of ruby styles of port and things like that. Late bottle vintage, those sorts of, and then vintage port. They're all sort of fruity characters of port. So the only port that you're really going to decant is vintage port or what you might see crusted port. Although crusted port's less and less common, I think. But those are ports that have got sediment in them. So bottled, unfined, unfiltered, and they'll have a lot of sediment, and the sediment allows them to age brilliantly. And those ports you would decant. You don't need to decant any of the other ports. And then the other style of port there is tawny port, which is aged in oak barrels and in a Solera system, so fractionally blending between oak barrels, right? And it's oxidized, so it definitely doesn't need any more air. It's had air all of its life. It's relaxed, it's fixed, it's stable. It doesn't need any decanting. But if you're going to decant a bottle of vintage port, I don't know, I'd drink it that meal with friends and family, really. Maybe the next day it'd be fine, but it would start to drop off, don't you think?
I had a bottle of vintage port, which it was my brother-in-law's. I'm actually at my mother-in-law's house right now, but a brother-in-law's port, which was 1978 Taylor's, which he got for his birthday. And that was open a while, actually, because I couldn't drink all of it every time he came to visit. So
really,
that was open. I was open weeks, and it was fine.
Oh, okay,
and it was good,
and it was fine.
Actually, it was developed. So it's not. I think in regards to, it's not like a wine that will fall off the cliff. Actually, it will get softener, and it will improve.
Yeah, and that's a pretty old bottle of port there as well. So that's kind of good. That's really good to hear. I mean, it does age phenomenally well, doesn't it?
Yeah. 48 now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. Sorry, my mother-in-law in the background telling me he's 48 now, so it wasn't 78 at all. It was 76. So it's even older.
Wow.
But yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Nice one. So how long does port last once it's opened? I sort of feel like we've kind of answered that. It lasts longer than wine. It's got more alcohol in it, but don't expect it to last till next Christmas. Treat it generally like a wine and try and drink it over the course of a week or something like that.
What do you think about decanting generally? Because I used to work for the Rothschilds, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And we would double decant everything. What's your view on decanting?
Yeah, I was talking about this the other day, and someone sort of asking that. I think as a general rule of thumb, it's not going to massively detract from the wine. So maybe if in doubt, decant it. But I think it's easy to get hung up on it and think that everything needs decanting, and often it doesn't. I think I would taste the wine and think, does this? It's kind of hard to explain, but does this feel open? Does this feel enjoyable? Does this feel like I'm getting the most out of this, or is there something that's not really singing to me in this bottle of wine? And if there wasn't, I would try decanting it to see if that was the reason, and that's what needed doing. So I think, if in doubt, it's a good thing to do. I think there are plenty of very old wines that if you decant them, they just fall apart, and maybe it's best not to. And then the other thing is, not many people decant white wines very often, and actually that has some interesting and surprising results. Yeah.
I only think back to that classic day two wine where you obviously enjoy it on the Friday or Saturday night, and then you have it on a Sunday afternoon or in the afternoon next day, and it's it's developed, it's more open, it's softer, it's more approachable, and you go, wow, only I'd maybe decanted it, or and it's really interesting for a winemaker to taste your wines, taste your wine in a box, because clearly that's not how I did that. And I was saying to Laura before the start we did this off air, that this is like 3 months in the future. This wine tastes like 3 months in the future, as opposed to what you buy in the bottle. So it's so interesting. I did the first tasting in a Facebook tasting where we were up at York, and we tasted it, and actually I almost preferred this version to the bottle, because the bottle hadn't caught up, whereas actually now I think this is kind of on the par with the bottle. So if you enjoy this wine, I think this is what's so interesting about all these wines. They are a little bit more developed because clearly they've been poured out of the bottle and into a
they've been decanted into the bags. And actually we've worked with these guys for a good time now, and we've worked really closely with them to get the process down to how it is now, but you're still obviously decanting the wine and putting it in a little bag, so it's actually a really good method of like giving you a good example of that wine. Would port go with Christmas pudding and custard? I reckon pretty well. Yeah, definitely. Ruby or Tawny? Michelle asks, what's your preference out of those two styles, Kieran?
It's probably Ruby, but then I don't know if that's just me. I think obviously that my military background, where we used to drink port basically on every single occasion going, would dictate that it would mostly be Ruby. But to be honest, if it was port, we would drink it. So I think they're both great styles. I think I can't profess to be a port expert, but I do love the drink, and I think culturally it's just a great thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I love Tawny port personally. I love the style of Tawny, where the wine has been in oak. It's relaxed. It's a very different style of drink. So you're getting, if you haven't tried Tawny port, I mean, if you bought one of our Christmas cases, this year we've put one of Oscar's Tawny port style in there, and it's just delicious because you're getting, particularly at Christmas, because with the oxidation in the oak, you're getting all these kind of sort of festive marzipan, hazelnuts, all of those like amazing secondary, tertiary characters to the wine, and Tawny port goes fantastically with cheese as well. And Tawny port would really go well, I think, with Christmas pudding, because you've got all those nuts and raisins in the Christmas pudding, and the Tawny would just go absolutely beautifully with them. Yeah, brilliant. Cool, thanks. I think that's
Matt.
that's all we've got time for. Thanks for rejoining, Kieran. Thanks for all your time. I think the Bacchus is outstanding. The Pinot Noir is outstanding. I'm just thrilled that we're working together. So excited to see what you pull out the bag for vintage 23 next year. But it's been really great having you on. And Sam, thank you, mate. It's really great to have you all the way from Oz. Thanks for giving up your breakfast time to be with us. I think hopefully everyone, you've really enjoyed this sort of selection of wine, drinking first class. All the wines are available on the site to buy now. So go and fill your boots now you've tasted. They won't be there forever. And they're really, they're good. They're great choices for all of your sort of festive dining occasions, and they're just bloody great wines, really. So hopefully it's been enjoyable. Thanks for all of your questions, everyone, to us. And yeah, if I don't see you, have a wonderful Christmas, relaxing, restful, and very Merry Christmas. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.